welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about a specific topic, and if you've been around my channel before or bothered to look at my description in my YouTube homepage, you'll notice that I will talk about kind of whatever's on my mind for the day. Sometimes I'll do a little bit of research with it, sometimes I won't. My channel, isn't all motorcycles all the time. The last several videos have been all about this bike in particular, my 2013 Victory, but I can only do so many videos about this bike. There's just not a whole lot more I can say about it. So today I was thinking about electric vehicles and just kind of how much I hate them. And I don't mean to hate them as a product. I just mean I hate the whole premise of why they exist. I suppose what got me thinking about that was, of course, all the news about the domestic terrorists going after Elon Musk's Chargers and attacking Tesla vehicles and, doxing the owners of Tesla vehicles and all that garbage. And I could make an entire video about that and how stupid and brain dead those people are. But I won't, at least not yet. I might. Who knows, whatever I feel like. But I am going to talk about electric vehicles because that's been something on my mind for a few years now, especially with the idea of electric motorcycles, which absolutely is just awful to my mind. But I guess let me back up a little bit and qualify where I'm going with a little bit of history. And I'm going to try to not make this very long, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes and how much I can edit out when I get there. So electric vehicles have been around for over 100 years, like closer to 120 years when it's all said and done. And honestly, they were being developed all over the world back in the late 1890s, early 1890s for that matter. Britain, America, I think Bulgaria, and a few other places. But anyways, come the 1900s, the early 1900s, they were really gaining in popularity. Technology was getting really good with them. And I believe I read somewhere by like 1910, I think, like literally 38% of the vehicles in America were electric powered vehicles, which to me is astounding because, yeah, we don't see those numbers today, I don't believe. But here's the thing, that these were city vehicles, right? Because in those early days, America didn't have a highway infrastructure that was worth a darn. And so to go outside the city was kind of at your own risk. They didn't have charging stations outside the city, and, the mileage, of course, of these vehicles weren't great. They're still in their infancy, even though they were, coming along nicely. And like I said, the infrastructure, the roads and stuff like that just wasn't good for these vehicles. In those days, the primary transportation out of the cities in the rural areas like this was still horseback. So bouncing into 1912, there were both gas-powered and electric vehicles. Gas-powered vehicles were pretty good for getting outside of the city and into the country a little bit. But again, the roads weren't great, so you weren't going to go a whole long way. And then, of course, the electric vehicles. Now, it's interesting the price differences even back then. 1912, $650 would get you a Model T. That same year, $1,750 would get you an electric vehicle. You convert that to today's pricing, that's $21,000, give or take, and $57,000, give or take. So even back then, the price gap between these two vehicles and these two technologies was still pretty substantial. And 113 years later, things haven't changed a whole lot. Yeah, you can buy small electric cars in the $40-ish thousand range, but you're only going to get a couple hundred miles mileage out of them before they got to get charged up, and that's garbage. That's not great at all. I suppose if you live in the city and you only work 10 minutes away, that might be something, but out here where I live and work, that's just asking to be for a pain in the butt. Anyway, looking ahead a few years to 1920, that's really where the electric vehicle market takes a huge hit. Roads and infrastructure start getting better by then. Texas discovers oil, which then is converted to cheap energy, cheap fuel for everything, literally. And Henry Ford revamps the production lines on Model T and figures out how to mass produce for cheap. And so the gas cars are inexpensive now with inexpensive fuel. And that the economics of that, just destroyed the electric car industry. They couldn't keep up because, gas stations were going up all over the place, left, right, and center, and there was no push for electric infrastructure to go along with it. And really, electric vehicles after that just kind of died, even though they had their place and they were popular. Just the economics of it killed it. And the reason why electric vehicles had their place and were popular, they were really popular, like I said, in the cities and with women. Because you look at the gas-powered vehicles before 1914, they were inefficient, they were smelly, they were manual transmissions, and they were just hard for people to drive, especially women. Whereas the electric vehicles didn't have any of that. They didn't have the bad smell, one gear, go, and easy to maneuver. And also, on top of that, before 1914, gasoline vehicles needed to be hand cranked to get started. Another thing that didn't have to happen on electric vehicles. 1914, the electric starter was invented, so that kind of took care of that. So yeah, by 1920, the economics and the convenience of gasoline powered engines and cars, just drove the electric market almost to non-existent. And it really didn't come back, or at least start making a comeback, until, I don't know, the 70s when the gas shortage hit. But even then, it still wasn't in the forefront of everybody's mind. So now, the point of what I'm complaining about today, I'm not complaining about electric vehicles as a product. They've been around forever. And honestly, if we would have put our muscle into it back in the early days, in the early 1900s, like we did gas, who knows what we could have had, in today, in 2025. You can't even imagine it. What bothers me about electric vehicles today is the premise, not the product, the premise under which they're sold. They're sold under the idea that, oh my gosh, if you don't buy an electric vehicle, you're killing the planet. You're doing horrible things to the planet if you don't buy an electric vehicle. Buy an electric vehicle to save the planet, save the environment, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? It's all garbage. That whole premise is BS. I don't like it. I don't like the idea of electric vehicles in today's modern society because it's all built upon a lie. That's just how I feel about it. If you're a Zoomer, and I'd actually be amazed if there's any Zoomers watching this channel, but if you are, and you're listening to the climate crisis shenanigans of people today saying what you ought to do and what you ought not to do, just take a look back through history and see how long and how many people have been saying that we're done for, before your time. In the 70s, in the 1970s, it was all about global cooling and going into a new ice age. And that actually extended into the early 80s. I remember that from when I was a kid. And then it went into global warming, and oh my gosh, we're not going to have polar ice caps. The polar bears are going to become desert terrestrial animals if they even exist, etc., etc., etc. Garbage, garbage, garbage. sea levels are going to rise and destroy the coastlines. Meanwhile, everybody's still buying homes on the coast, including climate activists buying homes on the coast because they know it's not true. They know it's not going to happen. You're not going to buy a multi-million-dollar home on the coast if you truly believe that coast is going to disappear. Dumb. But you have all these climate NPC activists out there that were willing to shill for these idiots. Almost said a bad word. I always have to remember that potentially I have little ones listening to my channel, so I gotta always watch my enthusiasm. Climate change, either cooling or warming, has been with us forever. When people figured out that they could make money off of people's fears and hysteria about climate change, when they figured out they could scare an entire group of people into silliness, when they discovered that they could manipulate weather models to dictate the outcomes that they wanted to fit their narratives, I mean, that's when it all just goes sideways. Does it get hot? Sure. Does it get cold? Sure. You know, there was a mini ice age in Europe a few hundred years ago. You know, the sun gets hotter, the earth gets hotter. The sun cools down, the earth cools down. And I know there's more to it than just that. You have volcanoes. You have, I mean, back in the day in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, chlorofluorocarbons were a big deal. And yes, they were eating a hole in the ozone layer. And yes, I'm glad that we killed off the CFCs. And as far as I know, the ozone layer has repaired itself. You know, so I'm not saying humans don't have an impact. We do. We always will. We will always impact our environment for good or for ill. But what I'm saying is that it's not an earth-ending situation. For as much bad as we can do good too. But to tell me that I have to buy a battery-operated vehicle because it's good for the planet, now you're just lying to me. Now you're coercing me. Now you're just trying to, you know, violate my conscience and my freedom. Why do I feel like that? Well, I mean, it's no secret that the exploitive mining that takes place and the strip mining that takes place to get these rare earth minerals is just awful. Yes, there are some ethical mining practices, but they're pretty far and few between the last time I looked. I could be wrong. Maybe they got better over the last couple of years, but, you know, humans being humans, I'm not going to hold my breath on it or take any bets. Simultaneously, see, rare earth minerals, that should speak to you about how sustainable mass production of electric vehicles are. The fact that China owns most of the rare earth minerals and mines, that doesn't excite me either. Although, you know, maybe Trump can take care of that. I don't know, who knows? This really isn't about Trump. It's just, again, about the premise of the lie of electric vehicles. And probably the biggest lie of all is the fact that I have to plug it into an outlet somewhere, whether it's a charging station or my house, and that's using fossil fuels to give me that electricity for my electric vehicle. And now you're still going to tell me that this is better for the planet somehow? Nah, bro, you're lying to me. You're lying to me and you're playing games. And if you're a politician pushing this stuff, all you're doing is gaming a system to gain more money for yourself and whatever pet company or project you got going on. Electric vehicles, carbon savings, all that stuff had nothing to do with saving the planet. It's all about power, control, and money. It's all it is, in my mind. And, you know, I'm sorry, you're probably not going to convince me otherwise. Now, like I said, all of that being said, I don't have a problem with electric vehicles themselves as a product. I'm a guy that likes choices, and if electric vehicle is a valid choice and it works for you and your environment and your lifestyle, more power to you, man. I'm not going to tell you you can't have it, but don't tell me I must have it. You know, let's be even with that. Let's not violate each other's freedoms of choice and conscience. Is there an electric vehicle that I would buy? Sure there is. Is it a Tesla? No. Because I don't have any interest in an electric car. I'd only want a truck, and the Tesla truck is god-awful ugly. I mean, if you're going to set one on fire because it's ugly, not because you got to protest some kind of political ideology. I mean, they're just ugly. Now, for me, personally, if I were to get an electric vehicle, it would be a Rivian truck. Man, to me, that's a good-looking vehicle, and it can actually do truck stuff, and it has at least they say anyway, a 400-mile plus range. Dude, now you're talking my language. If you can go 400 miles, we're halfway there to justifying a truck like that. The other thing that you have to do to really convince me is that I can charge that big old battery as quick as I can fill up my gas tank on my F-150 now. 5, 6, 7 minutes. If you can't charge your battery that quick, then we're done talking. I'm not getting an electric vehicle. Sorry, that's just the way it is, Well, I guess another thing I want to say is, what about electric motorcycles? Do they have any place? Of course they do. They've got a place for somebody. Somebody likes them. Somebody wants them. Just not me. But with that being said, there's no electric motorcycle that I could ever see myself buying, ever. Mainly because they just look the same. They're sport bike-ish. I mean, they're sport bike-ish. That's all they are. If they made an electric bagger, I don't know, maybe. Depends on how it look. I mean, but I got no interest in sport bikes and naked bikes and standard bikes. I just don't have any interest in those. If that's all I have to ride, then I'm not riding. And again, their range is pretty awful. And the amount of recharge time, basically all the same stuff that's wrong with every other electric vehicle. Range and recharge time, may be great for the city, but out here, not so much. I could make an electric car work. I could, just plug it in every night when I get home from work. I mean, it's about a 70-mile round trip when I'm driving straight to work. But again, I'm using coal-fired power plants to supply the electricity to my outlet to charge my electric vehicle. The hypocrisy of that is just, too much for me to work around. Now, if some utopian day they get an actual clean energy power plant to supply at scale the needs of a large amount of people, where I could plug in my electric motorcycle to, and it's all clean, it's all renewable, every last bit of it, including the processes it took to build the building, like everything was running on renewable energy. Okay, now you're actually convincing me you're trying to save the planet. Until then, I don't want to hear about it. You're not saving the planet. Just tell me you like an electric vehicle because it suits you where you're at, and hey man, we're good. But if you're going to go off into an ideological spin as to why you have the electric vehicle, then I'm probably not going to listen to you anymore. So in closing, I want to say, you want to know what is really doing damage to the environment? It's not my motorcycle. It's not hot rods. It's not monster trucks. What's really doing damage to the environment are things like this, and this, and this. And the people who are doing the most damage are people like this, and stupid little trolls like this.
How dare you?
Don't listen to those people. They don't know what they're talking about. They're hypocrites and liars. And these are the people that are doing the most damage to the environment. And one last thought, since I'm looking into the sky, you see up there? You see all those trails in the sky? Yeah, those are not contrails. That's not water vapor. Those are chemtrails, and that's doing damage to the environment. Let me tell you, when I was a kid, back in the 80s, our skies did not look like this. And I lived in Denver, and it was a clear blue sky above us with white puffy clouds most of the time. You know, in the right time of seasons, right? And yeah, you would see jet planes go by, and you would see the white trail behind them. And that white trail would disappear shortly after they flew by because those were actual water vapors. Not like today. That's not water vapor up there. So it's our government that's doing damage to the environment. It's not you and me. Our government, elite people, grifters, all those people that are in power, that are saying what you and I have to do to save the planet, when we're not the ones damaging the planet, not on scale anyway. Those people are the evil people. Those people are the people that are damaging everything. Well, I've had about enough of that conversation. Again, if you know anything about my channel, this was kind of if we were riding together and we were just talking about these things, this would be my thoughts. Feel free to use the comment section to drop your thoughts. Am I right? Am I wrong? I'm going to pass up an actual biker, and we'll see you later.